2만 명수도 인정해야지.
A North Korean defector who turned into this human rights activist launched some 20 balloons carrying hundreds of thousands of leaflets condemning North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
North Korea appears to have made good on its threat to send rubbish over the border to South Korea.
In a tense escalation along the Korean border, a recent CNN report detailed a dramatic incident involving balloons drifting into South Korean territory.
And the balloon feud is back over the Korean Peninsula too. South Korea's military says it detected about 350 waste balloons sent from the north Monday night into Tuesday.
These balloons, discovered to contain a disturbing mix of excrement, rubbish, and waste paper, triggered an immediate response from military and explosive disposal teams. Amidst the debris, authorities also found suspected propaganda leaflets, prompting a thorough investigation. Initially reported as 90 balloons, the number has since surged to over 150, with some estimates suggesting as many as 200 scattered across South Korea. This provocative act, attributed to North Korea in retaliation for recent South Korean activist efforts, underscores the persistent friction between the two nations. The incident mirrors a long-standing pattern of cross-border tension, where South Korean activists and North Korean defectors regularly send balloons laden with messages condemning the Pyongyang regime. Typically timed for April and May when winds favor northern drifts, these actions are intended to penetrate North Korean borders with messages and even USB sticks containing K-pop videos. North Korea's response, seen as a direct challenge to South Korean initiatives, aims to illustrate the logistical and environmental challenges posed by such incursions. This episode serves as a stark reminder of the enduring geopolitical complexities and the ongoing efforts to influence public sentiment across the Korean Peninsula. Why was South Korea doing this? The practice of sending South Korean songs, movies, and cultural materials via balloons to North Korea adds a rich layer to the ongoing efforts aimed at breaking the regime's information blockade and fostering cultural exchange. These cultural exports, ranging from popular K-pop songs to blockbuster movies and beloved television dramas, serve a dual purpose of providing entertainment and offering insights into the lifestyles and values of South Koreans. For North Koreans who are largely cut off from global cultural trends and have limited exposure to international media, receiving these cultural items can be transformative. They not only provide a form of escapism from the regime's pervasive propaganda, but also offer a window into a world vastly different from their own. The songs and movies depict everyday life, romance, comedy, and drama in South Korea, presenting a contrast to the state-controlled narratives that dominate their media landscape. Beyond entertainment, these cultural exchanges aim to humanize South Koreans in the eyes of North Koreans, promoting empathy and understanding across the divided peninsula. By sharing aspects of South Korean culture that resonate universally, such as music that uplifts, movies that inspire, and stories that evoke emotion, activists and defectors hope to forge connections that transcend political differences. They seek to remind North Koreans that beyond the political rhetoric and military tensions, there are people just like them on the other side of the border, with shared aspirations for peace, prosperity, and freedom. However, these efforts are not without controversy and geopolitical implications. Pyongyang often perceives these cultural exchanges as provocative acts aimed at undermining its authority and cultural identity. The regime has responded with harsh rhetoric and occasionally retaliatory measures, such as launching its own propaganda balloons or condemning South Korean activists and defectors involved in these activities. Despite the challenges and risks involved, proponents of cultural balloon campaigns argue that they play a crucial role in promoting human rights, freedom of information, and cross-border understanding. They believe that by expanding North Koreans' access to diverse cultural expressions, they contribute to the gradual erosion of the regime's control over its people's hearts and minds, paving the way for eventual reconciliation and peaceful coexistence on the Korean Peninsula. Thus, These initiatives continue to evolve amidst ongoing diplomatic efforts and regional dynamics, reflecting the enduring complexities of inter-Korean relations. North Korea's response. North Korea has responded to South Korean balloon campaigns by launching its own balloons across the border, filled with materials intended to mock and undermine the efforts of activists and defectors. These balloons often contain propaganda leaflets, DVDs, and occasionally actual trash or used toilet paper. This tactic serves multiple purposes. It symbolically insults and degrades the content sent from South Korea, portraying it as worthless and contrasting it with North Korea's own state-approved narratives. It also functions as a form of psychological warfare, aimed at undermining morale among North Korean defectors and activists in the South by mocking their efforts and ridiculing the messages they attempt to convey. Additionally, sending balloons filled with trash is a demonstration of North Korea's resolve and defiance against what it perceives as external interference and provocations, reinforcing the regime's narrative of steadfast resistance to perceived threats. These actions also serve as a propaganda tool domestically, reinforcing the regime's control over information and justifying its measures to protect against external influences. Other strategic responses. In response to the balloon campaigns conducted by South Korean activists and North Korean defectors, North Korea has taken several actions aimed at countering and suppressing these activities. Diplomatic protests. North Korea has frequently lodged formal protests with South Korea and international bodies, condemning the balloon launches as provocative acts of psychological warfare. These protests often accuse South Korea of violating the Korean Armistice Agreement, which governs the cessation of hostilities between the two Koreas since the Korean War. Military threats and escalation. At times, North Korea has escalated tensions by threatening military action or conducting military drills near the border in response to perceived provocations from the South. These actions serve to intimidate and deter further balloon launches while demonstrating North Korea's readiness to defend its borders and national sovereignty. Legislative and enforcement measures. Domestically, North Korea has implemented strict laws and enforcement measures to discourage its citizens from accessing or spreading foreign information. Possession of unauthorized media or engaging in activities deemed to undermine the regime's authority can lead to severe punishments, including imprisonment in political prison camps. International condemnation and diplomatic isolation. North Korea has also used its diplomatic channels to rally international condemnation against South Korea and other countries supporting the balloon campaigns. This includes efforts to portray the launches as destabilizing and provocative acts that threaten regional peace and security. Why did North Korea take such steps? North Korea's strong response to the balloon campaigns from South Korea and North Korean defectors can be understood through several key motivations and concerns that shape Pyongyang's approach. Regime stability. The North Korean regime prioritizes maintaining internal stability and control. Any influx of external information, especially that which contradicts the regime's propaganda, is seen as a threat to this control. The regime fears that exposure to outside media and perspectives could undermine its authority and ideology, potentially leading to dissent or challenges to its leadership. Propaganda and ideological control. Central to North Korea's governance is the strict control over information and the promotion of a unified ideological narrative. The regime uses propaganda extensively to uphold the leadership's legitimacy and portray an idealized image of the country. Therefore, efforts to introduce alternative narratives or critical viewpoints through balloon campaigns are viewed as direct challenges to this carefully constructed propaganda framework. National security concerns. North Korea often frames activities like the balloon launches as acts of psychological warfare orchestrated by South Korea and its allies. The regime asserts that such actions pose a threat to its national security by potentially inciting unrest among its population or sowing discord within the military ranks. This perception drives North Korea to respond with military readiness and diplomatic protests to deter further provocations. Diplomatic posturing. Internationally, North Korea uses its response to the balloon campaigns to rally support from sympathetic nations and condemnations against South Korea. By portraying itself as a victim of aggression and psychological warfare, Pyongyang seeks to garner diplomatic leverage and deflect attention from its own human rights abuses and geopolitical tensions. Historical context. The Korean War and subsequent division of the Korean Peninsula have left deep-seated animosities and a legacy of mistrust between North and South Korea. Balloon campaigns, seen as part of ongoing ideological and psychological warfare, exacerbate these historical tensions and reinforce North Korea's narrative of being under constant threat from external forces. Challenges for South Korea. The balloon campaigns from South Korea, particularly those conducted by activists and North Korean defectors, have posed several challenges for South Korea. Diplomatic tensions. The balloon launches have frequently strained relations between North and South Korea. North Korea has retaliated with harsh rhetoric, military threats, and diplomatic protests, accusing South Korea of violating the Korean Armistice Agreement and engaging in provocative acts. This has sometimes escalated into military posturing and heightened tensions on the Korean Peninsula, complicating efforts for peaceful dialogue and cooperation. Domestic political debates. Within South Korea, the balloon campaigns have sparked debates over their effectiveness, legality, and ethical implications. Some criticize these activities as provocative and counterproductive, fearing they could escalate conflict or endanger the safety of border communities. Others argue in favor of freedom of expression and the importance of supporting human rights and freedom of information in North Korea. Safety concerns. The physical act of launching balloons across the border has raised safety concerns, particularly for residents living near the border area. There have been incidents where balloons have landed in populated areas, potentially causing disruptions or safety risks. This has led to calls for stricter regulations or bans on balloon launches to mitigate these risks. International perception. The balloon campaigns have also attracted international attention and scrutiny. Some countries and international organizations have expressed concerns about the potential destabilizing effects of these activities on regional security and stability. This has occasionally placed South Korea in a delicate position diplomatically, balancing its support for human rights with broader geopolitical considerations. Countermeasures from North Korea. North Korea's retaliatory actions, such as launching its own balloons filled with propaganda or engaging in cyber attacks against South Korean activists, have necessitated heightened security measures and responses from South Korean authorities. This ongoing cycle of provocations and countermeasures adds complexity to inter-Korean relations and regional dynamics. The effects of this balloon campaign. Diplomatic and security challenges. The campaigns have often strained relations between North and South Korea. North Korea's strong reactions, including military threats and diplomatic protests, have led to heightened tensions on the Korean Peninsula. This has necessitated careful diplomatic maneuvering by South Korea to manage these tensions while advocating for freedom of expression and human rights. Domestic debate and polarization. Within South Korea, the balloon campaigns have sparked intense domestic debates. Supporters argue for the importance of promoting human rights and freedom of information in North Korea, viewing the campaigns as a moral imperative and a way to empower North Koreans. Opponents, however, cite concerns over safety, potential escalations, and the impact on inter-Korean relations. This has contributed to polarization and differing views within South Korean society. International perceptions. The balloon campaigns have drawn international attention and scrutiny. While some countries and organizations support South Korea's efforts to promote human rights, Others express concerns about the potential for these activities to escalate tensions in the region. South Korea's stance on these campaigns can influence its international reputation and diplomatic relations with key allies and partners. Security and safety concerns. The physical act of launching balloons across the border has raised security and safety concerns, particularly for residents near the border area. Instances of balloons causing disruptions or landing in populated areas have led to calls for stricter regulations or bans on balloon launches to mitigate these risks and ensure public safety. Impact on inter-Korean relations. The balloon campaigns have had a direct impact on inter-Korean relations, affecting efforts for dialogue, cooperation, and reconciliation between the two Koreas. North Korea's negative reactions and retaliatory measures have complicated efforts to improve relations and achieve lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. Why North Korea is in big trouble. In response to North Korea's provocative balloon release, South Korea reacted swiftly and decisively. The incident, which involved balloons containing a troubling mix of excrement, rubbish, and suspected propaganda leaflets, elicited a strong condemnation from Seoul. South Korea's chief of staff issued a stern warning to the public, advising citizens to stay clear of the scattered debris and urging vigilance against potential threats. Military personnel were deployed across affected areas to secure the scene, conduct thorough investigations, and ensure public safety. The deliberate inflow of such materials was viewed by South Korean officials as a calculated attempt to heighten tensions and destabilize the region. Cleanup operations were promptly initiated, with specialized teams mobilized to remove the balloon's contents and assess any risks posed by the propaganda materials. Efforts focused not only on physical cleanup, but also on countering the psychological impact intended by North Korea's actions. Amidst the cleanup efforts, South Korea reiterated its commitment to peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. Diplomatic channels were activated to address the incident diplomatically and prevent further escalation. Discussions emphasized the importance of dialogue and restraint in managing cross-border provocations, with South Korea reaffirming its stance on peaceful coexistence despite ongoing challenges. The balloon incident highlighted enduring tensions between North and South Korea, underscoring the complexities of inter-Korean relations. As both nations navigate the intricacies of geopolitical dynamics, South Korea remains steadfast in its efforts to protect its borders, promote regional stability, and seek constructive paths toward resolving long-standing issues. Following a provocative action by North Korea, tensions have escalated dramatically on the Korean Peninsula, prompting a swift and serious response from South Korea. The deployment of South Korean military forces underscores the deep-rooted tensions and fragile peace that have defined relations between the two nations since the Korean War of 1950 to 1953. The Korean War erupted when North Korean forces, supported by China and the Soviet Union, invaded South Korea in June 1950. The conflict quickly escalated into a brutal and protracted war, marked by significant loss of life and widespread devastation. The United Nations, led by the United States, intervened on behalf of South Korea, while Chinese forces intervened on behalf of North Korea, turning the conflict into a complex and deadly international standoff. After 3 years of intense fighting and devastating consequences, including civilian casualties and the displacement of millions, an armistice was signed in July 1953. However, no formal peace treaty was ever agreed upon, leaving the Korean Peninsula technically still at war and divided along the heavily fortified Demilitarized Zone, DEMZ. Despite occasional diplomatic overtures and efforts towards reconciliation, the scars of the war continue to influence North-South Korean relations. The recent provocative actions by North Korea have revived memories of past hostilities and reignited fears of a potential return to armed conflict. South Korea, keenly aware of the historical context and the responsibility to safeguard its citizens and preserve regional stability, has responded with heightened military readiness. International observers are closely monitoring the situation, recognizing the volatile nature of North-South Korean relations and the broader implications for global security. Calls for restraint and diplomatic dialogue echo through diplomatic channels as efforts are made to prevent a dangerous escalation. As the world watches, the possibility of renewed conflict on the Korean Peninsula serves as a stark reminder of unresolved historical grievances and the delicate balance of power in Northeast Asia. The consequences of a potential conflict extend far beyond the region, impacting global geopolitics and humanitarian efforts. At last, if you view the situation from a North Korean perspective, it appears that the South Koreans initiated the conflict by sending balloons first. These balloons, launched by South Korean activists and human rights groups, were filled with leaflets, DVDs, and USB drives containing K-pop music, K-dramas, and movies. The primary aim was to inform North Korean citizens about human rights and to expose them to the outside world. South Koreans defended their actions by stating that they were attempting to help North Korean citizens become aware of global events and their fundamental rights, which are often suppressed by the North Korean regime. From the South Korean point of view, these efforts were meant to empower the North Korean people with knowledge and entertainment that are otherwise inaccessible to them due to the strict censorship imposed by their government. The South believed that by providing this information, they could foster a sense of freedom and hope among the North Korean populace. However, North Korea viewed these actions as aggressive and provocative. In retaliation, North Korea launched over 200 balloons towards South Korea, filled with their own propaganda materials. This was done to give the South Koreans a taste of their own medicine and to demonstrate the challenges and inconveniences caused by such activities. The North intended to show how difficult it is to clean up after these incidents and to send a message that they would not tolerate such provocations without a response. When these North Korean balloons landed in South Korea, they were perceived as a significant threat. The South Korean government took these incidents very seriously, deploying bomb squads, chemical experts, and military personnel to inspect the balloons and ensure they did not pose any danger. Authorities warned citizens to stay away from the balloons due to potential security risks, underscoring the heightened state of alert and the serious implications of such exchanges between the two Koreas. This situation highlights the complex and strained relationship between North and South Korea. While South Korea's actions were framed as humanitarian efforts to promote freedom and human rights, North Korea saw them as hostile acts of psychological warfare. The mutual distrust and the differing perspectives on such actions continue to exacerbate tensions on the Korean Peninsula, illustrating the fragile and volatile nature of inter-Korean relations. With that being said here, we come to the end of our video. Let us know in the comments if you support North Korea's regime or not. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of our videos.